First of all, I know very few serious biblical scholars who think this story is the recounting of an historical event. But that doesn't make it any less true. John Dominic Crossan had the best line about this beautiful story. He said, "Emmaus never happened. Emmaus is always happening." We are all walking to Emmaus, a place that, by the way, no one can find on an ancient map. And there are no references to it because it's a place that exists only in the imagination of the writer of Luke's gospel. An unknown traveler named Cleopas and his companion are out walking off their numbness, trying to get the images of the execution out of their minds because, well, it looks like the Jesus movement is finally over and done with. And then they meet a stranger on the road. The writer of Luke's gospel, the most lyrical and psychologically astute of the gospel writers, claims that they do not recognize him. Eyes wide shut, to recall Stanley Kubrick's 1999 film about the multiple levels of denial that human beings practice. These two men still talking about the women in the group who astounded us by seeing that which the boys have yet to perceive, do what men do. They argue about what they're feeling instead of just feeling what they are feeling. In the Yale lectures, I said it looks in the Gospels as if women move toward the cross and men move away from it, preferring to debate the matter rather than just sit next to the grave as the women did and grieve. In reality, I think these two are mostly feeling sorry for themselves, which in life is a losing strategy. They are discussing current events, of course, just as we have been. But I suspect they're also lamenting the end of the era and this feeling of sting about their false hopes. It was so cool for a while, and then kaboom. I'm paraphrasing, of course. They're not out looking for Jesus, really, but as Fred Buechner put it so beautifully, it would appear that Jesus is out looking for them. And in what guise does he come? His favorite one, that of the stranger who comes in the midst of grief. That grief blinds them because they are dealing with it by not dealing with it. They assume the stranger's clueless, and the stranger plays along till it turns out that he knows more than they do about current events. "Oh, how foolish you are," he says, "and how slow of heart to believe all the prophets have declared." And what did the prophets all declare? That God is a God of mercy and justice, of forgiveness and unconditional love. In other words, and I hope you will not grow weary of hearing this from me, they declared the frightening truth that either all of us matter or none of us do. We don't know much about Cleopas, and we don't know anything about the other guy. Or this town that doesn't even exist. It's like Area 51 that no one can find on a map, but we know it's there. Or how about this stranger that is Jesus, who comes, he appears and disappears, and who had told them all in life, "I'm in the stranger. When you see the stranger, you see me." Isn't it this terrifying fact that we are always encountering Jesus in the stranger that makes this the most compelling story in the New Testament? And the most beautiful part comes at the end when the stranger appears to be traveling beyond their stopping point, and they wonder if he's eaten or has a place to stay. "Stay with us. Stay with us," they say. And those three words of hospitality make everything that follows possible. Stay with us. Because you are not just a stranger, you are a fellow traveler, and we have bread. We have bread, and hunger makes us brothers. Night is falling, and the darkness means we need one another. So here's the essential equation of the gospel. As long as we argue about it, we don't get it. But when we show concern for one another, then we feel our hearts strangely warmed. You can count on this. This is gospel. Stay with us. Stay with us. Because revelation follows compassion, it does not precede it. Now here is something amazing to consider. In all the other appearance stories, something important is being said about the continuation and authority of the church, right? He appears to the remaining 11 disciples, that's good. To the women who followed him, that's good. To Paul on the road to Damascus, that's good. And to the 500 in Acts, that's really good. But in this story, he appears to someone who is a nobody and to the nobody's companion. He seeks out the people who least expect to encounter him, those traveling an unnamed road to an unknown place in the midst of an unknown future. And that, my friends, describes all of us. We are always talking about finding God. I need to find God and get right with God. But almost never do we talk about God finding us, about the luminous web that operates as mysteriously at the Buy for Less or at Brahms or in Gothibo as it does in St. Peter's Square or at Westminster Abbey. Because when you think about it, when you think you know, that's when you do not know. But when you know that you do not know, that's when you know. No single story in the New Testament tells this truth so beautifully as the walk to Emmaus. It's not an argument. It's an encounter. And nothing could save the church like this simple fact, to say faith is an encounter with the other, not an argument about whether the other is right with God. Stay with us. Stay with us. Stay with us. For it's almost evening, and you must be hungry. Stay with us, and we will stop killing people to prove how wrong it is to kill people. Stay with us, and we'll make sure more people can go to see a doctor. Stay with us, and we will provide for the least of these and make their schools fit to go to. Stay with us. Stay with us, lest we forget that one of these days, if we are not careful, we will execute Jesus again. Amen.